What is the most hardy saltwater fish? I think most experienced hobbyists and even pet shops would answer this question by steering you towards clownfish. They are quite hardy, they're brightly colored, and they're a lot of fun to watch. They tend to be bold and hang out in the open and are easy to feed since they will eagerly accept a variety of prepared foods like pellets or flakes. But there are quite a few different marine species that are considered to be hardy, and that list is actually growing. So let's take a look at what makes a hardy fish hardy, and then I'll give you some other options just in case clownfish aren't on your wish list. A hardy fish should be able to handle some swings in water chemistry. What this means is that the fish should be able to easily tolerate changes in water chemistry like elevated nutrients, higher or lower than optimal salinity, or swings of up to a few degrees in temperature without becoming physically stressed and getting sick or worse. A hardy fish should also be easy to feed. Being easy to feed means that they should readily accept prepared foods like frozen foods, freeze-dried foods, dried seaweed, flakes, or pellets. They should not require any sort of specialized feeding strategies or tools, and should not have to rely on any copepods, amphipods, or other sources of live food that are only provided by the reef itself. You shouldn't have to work hard or use anything in particular to entice them into eating, or to make sure that they're eating enough times per day. If it takes more than you dropping an appropriate amount of food into the tank once or twice a day, chances are it isn't quite that easy to feed. A hardy fish should also be bold and unafraid of people. Getting a fish that is bold and doesn't dart and hide as soon as it sees a human being is important because it makes it much easier to interact with them, see how they're doing, make sure they're eating enough, and ultimately means they aren't constantly stressed with people walking by the tank. A fish that's fearful and skittish is more challenging to keep tabs on and monitor, it's harder to get them eating regularly, and they may also be fearful of other fish in the aquarium and hide when you feed the tank rather than coming out and eagerly competing for food. A skittish and stressed out fish also tends to be weaker and more susceptible to common parasites and pathogens. Now, it's pretty normal for a brand new fish that was just added to a tank to be a little bit wary and cautious for the first few days or so, and that's totally okay. On the other hand, some species are just known to be flighty and hard to find once they go into a tank, regardless of how long they've been there. A hardy fish should also be resistant or not easily susceptible to common parasites and pathogens. There are quite a few fish that come to mind as being magnets for a particular pathogen or parasite. I think a pretty well-known example are tangs and copperband butterflies that are often called ick magnets. A hardy fish shouldn't be a fish that's known to easily catch or harbor common parasites or pathogens that we find in our saltwater tanks. In a perfect world, we would all be doing perfectly practiced quarantines for every single fish that we want to put in our tanks, and the stores we buy from would have already done that for us as well, but for a lot of people, it just isn't practical, so sticking with hardy, disease-resistant species is the best bet. Which also means avoiding wild caught fish, which at this point, I think the majority of responsible aquarium owners prefers to do, which leads me into getting captive bred fish. There are more species of captive bred marine fish available now than ever before, from a huge variety of clownfish species and morphs to basslets, dottybacks, damsels, gobies, blennies, and even dwarf angelfish. All of these captive bred fish were raised in the aquarium environment and tend to be used to seeing humans and tend to be aggressive feeders that will accept prepared foods. They're well taken care of, healthy and resilient, and tend not to get sick very easily, making them a far better choice than their wild-caught counterparts. So here is my short list of hardy marine species that I often go to whenever I'm going to be setting up a new saltwater tank and want to put the first few fish in there. At the top of the list, for no particular reason, is clownfish, of course, followed by chalk basslets, orchid and neon dottybacks, bengai and pajama cardinals, yellow watchman gobies, and yellow-tailed damselfish. But here's the rub. Just because a fish is hardy doesn't necessarily make it a good fish for beginners, especially if you want a reef tank with corals and other invertebrates. You also want to make sure that it's a good community fish and that it's reef safe, along with 7 other important characteristics that Matthew's gonna walk you through on his beginner fish guide in this video right here.